Welcome to the show. Today we'll be discussing about the upcoming budget. I have a very prominent guest with me, the former State Minister for Investment and economist, Mr. Haroon Sharif. Thank you very much, sir, for joining. Please, what is your idea or a kind of a framework that we need to have for an economy where we can provide some kind of a relief to the masses?
See, we need to understand, Waheed Sahab, that budgets are not policy instrument. They are an instrument to finance a policy direction globally. In Pakistan, since our policies remain erratic and short-term, so budgets become very important because that's how we get the message that where allocations are going. But we need to really understand that in developed economies, nobody really cares because we already know the direction of budget, which is set through a policy framework.
Yeah.
The only policy framework which is now basically influencing our budget or giving a direction is the IMF Extended Fund Facility framework. So that is the framework which actually is endorsing. Currently, the mission is here. I met them day before yesterday. So they are setting the direction of the budget, which is unfortunate, but reality. So at this point in time, as you already know, they have 11 new, benchmarks or prior actions for the next tranche and the financial year. But the fundamental things there are, something which we need to understand that, they want really aggressive way of increasing the revenue. And the word aggressive is used basically in the negotiations, and much higher, 3 times higher targets for the provinces, cutting down subsidies and cutting down incentives in economic zones and technology zones over the next 10 years, phasing it out. So this is basically is the structure of the budget which we can foresee. In terms of relief, the only instrument which falls under that framework is the BISP instrument. And I remain worried and concerned that the current war's impact is much higher on the middle class and the fixed income people, not necessarily on the people who are living below the poverty line. And we do not have an institutional arrangement to provide relief to that segment of society.
Mr. Haroon, kindly tell me that what are the fundamentals of aggressive revenue? Because I was hearing a couple of days back or 3-4 days back, some very informed journalist was telling me that there is almost 650 billion rupees shortfall, and which may go up to 700 billion rupees shortfall, the target that the government has set. So do you think that in this current year, which is going to end in June, we could not, in fact, fulfill the requirement or the commitment that we made with the IMF? How we could be able to have a kind of a aggressive approach towards the revenue for the next year when there's a war going on? We are already under pressure. Please.
Yeah, we need to look at two sides. First of all, let's look at the target for the next budget, which is coming in media. The revenue target for Federation is 17.145 trillion, okay? As against 14 point something, which we could not achieve, as a matter of fact. So this target has three things. Number one is the regular increment, which is the inflation and 3.5% assumption of GDP growth, which Pakistan has given, and topping it up by another 10%, 12%, so that you reach that target. Now, this is the formula which IMF basically uses in order to set a target for the budget. A few interesting things are in the budget because it very strongly advocates the increase in petroleum levy, the periodic increases in the utility, electricity and gas tariffs, Uh, it also gives targets to provinces to ensure GST, better GST collection, plus outreach to agriculture income. You know, now these are the what I call the agreed wish list. Okay. Now coming to your pertinent question, that this is what we agree to get another tranche. Okay. Is economy capable of doing it? Our institutions are geared, and is there a political sport behind it? I will add the political sport question, because we are moving towards the cycle of political wheeling and dealing as the government completes more than half the term of its tenure. Now, IMF does not take a look of political economy of the budget. What has disappointed me, and I basically has publicly echoed, I have worked in many economies which have seen an external shock, like the shock of war, which we have seen. The first thing the economies do, the economic managers, they do an independent assessment of the potential impacts of this conflict in terms of the economic losses, the damage to sectors, what sectors and areas to support, what not to support, and that independent assessment is used for negotiation with multiple stakeholders, including international lenders, like i.e. the IMF. Pakistan has not done any of these things. I asked the IMF that, have you done something? They showed me a report which was global, but not really necessarily linked to Pakistan. That's where my problem arises, because if you do not have a credible document to have an informed negotiation, then you are bound by tweaking things in order to meet the fiscal targets only. And then when you basically falter, to answer your question, then you will go for political maneuvering, some waivers or adjustments later on, or putting more burden on the people already in the tax net, which has been the practice in the past. I see a very tough, budget for next 1 year, and even tougher management or achievement of agreed goals of this, particular budget in the coming year.
Sir, kindly tell me that BISP, I mean, there is a kind of a discussion which is going on in the media regarding 28th Amendment, and some of the parts are related to the financial aspect, like, you know, uh, the share that the provinces get in the budget or through the NFC. One. Second is, this BISP issue is being raised and it is under discussion. I have seen on even the People's Party parliamentarians, Shazia Mari was talking to the GEO last night, and she said that because the anchors asked her about sharing the finances by the provinces under this program, but she said that it's a national program and only the federal government will have to finance this program. What is your opinion? 800 billion rupees or more than that is they go to BISP. IMF has a kind of a reservation on that, and then please also answer the NFC and the share of their provinces.
Yeah, there are two sides to your question. First of all, I think whenever, we do things like politically motivated constitutional amendments without taking into cognizance or understanding their impact on the economy or financial distribution of the country, we have a classic example of devolution linked amendments, where we devolved financial powers and distribution formulas without looking at the global trends, without looking at the capability of provinces, and without looking at the debt situation, because provinces basically don't repay the debt. It is the federation which pays the debt on sovereign guarantees. So then there were a couple of global developments which not many people talk about. First global development is almost closure of the aid programs by the West. So the money which was supporting the poor and the social sectors through aid programs has vanished. And even Kristalina Georgieva, the managing director of IMF, has commented that the fiscal deficits and borrowing of developing countries have gone up because of the closure of the aid programs. Okay. Now, if you take into account, so then one shouldn't be surprised that Pakistan has the borrowing of Pakistani government has skyrocketed, because that's how you have basically financed your expenditure, because the money has gone to the provinces, and we are talking to provinces about maintaining some kind of surpluses because obviously they can't spend the money. Now, my bigger worry is that even our three biggest, expenditures in the budget at the moment. The biggest is debt servicing. The second is additional money given to defense, and the third is BISP. Okay, we are paying about, I think, 18.
Sorry, after paying to the provinces their share.
Yeah, no, provinces share is constitutional. I'm saying whatever you're left with, this is where
Okay,
the money goes. Okay.
right.
I don't see any large PSDP or anything, coming up, because there is no money left, frankly speaking. And if you recall, the cheaper money through grants and stuff was also used for PSDP in the past.
Yeah.
Now, in these circumstances, what are your options, in Pakistan? Your options are what we are trying to do. Again, doing political maneuvering and power brokering to reverse some of these, amendments in order to have the center having more revenue. Okay. I worry because none of these things are being done under any economic policy direction. It is basically done to pay the bills. So whenever you do things to pay the bills, any other political move tomorrow can again reverse it. You see,
Yeah.
you need to have a shared economic policy direction that we are doing it to achieve this. We cannot achieve unless we invest in health, unless we invest in education. You got to have targets negotiated with provinces that please do that. Otherwise, we will not be able to achieve what, as a country, our shared goal is. But if you're doing an amendment just to have more money, so that you can, your borrowing can be controlled and you can pay your bills and you can continue with the perks and privileges, major question marks on that thinking, frankly speaking. Now, BISP is kind of, debated that it should be given to provinces. Some people question that, it's handouts only. But the question is that because of your perpetual failure of development policies, today we have between 70 to 100 million people living under the poverty line,
Mm.
right? Now, if you can't provide economic opportunities to them, what's their fault? So I think BISP is needed for that class. And IMF would support it because the fund needs to look good as well globally, that, they are, not anti-poor. Having said that, with the state, such a tight monetary situation, fiscal situation, you cannot continue for such a big cash transfer program for long, because you cannot continue financing it through, piling up of your debt. So the only solution is that the pie of the economy has to expand. But what I'm seeing in the next budget is that it will be monetary tightening, higher inflation, higher interest rate. Higher interest rate means government, which is the net borrower from the banking system, they will pay more to the banking system. Banks will have more hefty profits. But at the end of the day, none of those profits will be shared with the marginalized who are suffering, because everything has been passed on to them. So very difficult time for honest lower middle income and middle income people, and the people who are already in the tax net, unfortunately.
Finally, please tell me that how you see I mean, whatever is being done or whatever is being proposed, in fact, is under the guidance or under the umbrella of IMF. Then where is our own strength, economic or financial policy making strength, which could reflect that, okay, maybe after 3 years, we'll be out of IMF program and we'll be, having a fundamental, of economics, and we'll be running this country on our own policies and ideas and vision instead of getting directions only from the IMF.
Javed, we need to look at hardcore numbers, not the wish lists. Every politician gives a statement that we want to be get out of IMF, makes a committee which doesn't even know what IMF stands for. Now, my question here is that if Pakistan, my serious judgment, if you want to move your homegrown sustainable economic development policy, which does not require bailouts, consistent bailouts, then you need to do three things. First of all, there's no 3 years. It will be 15 to 20 years.
Yeah.
But you have to have consistent policies of a gradual phase out. Today,
Mm,
your program is 7 billion, next could be 4, then you can gradually reduce that.
mm,
So we need to be clear as professionals. We should not be dishonest to ourselves or with people. Number two, you need to have a consensus on an economic growth model where we change the structure of economy which has benefited services immensely and unproductive services immensely, and go behind the winner sectors both in industrial sectors but also services sector like IT and knowledge economy. Okay,
mm,
so that is where the way Professor Hausman gave that model, you let the people who are on crutches die, frankly speaking. That's the second pillar, change the structure of economy where the industry plays bigger role than where it is now. And
mm,
services are rationalized towards productive export oriented services. That's number two. Number three basically is which I call that we have consistently, and that's an important point. Our economic model for past 30, 40 years is that we are living on geopolitical rents. Okay.
mm,
We try and gain out of our geopolitical positioning. Even when I was in the government, we started this, deposits from friendly countries. That was a geopolitical game, not an economic model.
mm,
So if you are doing geopolitical rents, which is, I'm not criticizing that, but these rents have failed to translate into a productive economic value proposition. We have taken some aid. I don't think only GSP Plus might be one where exporters benefited temporarily.
yeah.
But we other is some aid, some federal government handouts, some market access, and that's about it. We have not used the way Southeast East Asia did. They built an export base. They picked up the sectors who they think they can build on. And
Yeah.
then they opened up market because of the Cold War geopolitical sentiment. And today they are ruling the world, frankly speaking, because of that sentiment. So this is time for Pakistan that someone in the power structure should stand up and say, guys, we need to make use of these geopolitical gains into real economic gains,
Yeah.
complete the Pakistan-Iran pipeline under this, negotiation.
Yeah.
Let's, open up markets. If 51% of my export is value added textile, let's stand behind them and leave the loss making textile behind. Let's
Yeah.
stand behind the knowledge economy and stop harassing people through state institutions. Let them make money legitimately. Because whoever I talk to, they complain about only one institution, which is called FBR, and they complained about harassment. They are still scared of NAB. They are still scared of investigation. Let people make money, and if there is a gross violation, catch them, but don't stop calling people every day to come and report to them. This is my message. If Pakistani leadership can do it, they might be having a medium term 10 to 15 years plan to leave IMF.
Excellent message. Thank you very much, Haroon Sharif, former State Minister for Investment and a senior economist. Thank you very much for your precious time, please.